Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm underneath a 2016 Sprinter with a 2.1 liter engine, 4-cylinder, and we're going to be doing the transmission service. The transmission is due at 40,000 miles, the service is. So I'm going to show you how to do this service and get her on the road. Let's go. All right, getting started, we're going to go ahead and you need to pop out these plastic clips here. I like to use a multi-tool like this. You can, I'm doing this left-handed, so it's going to be kind of weird. So you put the multi-tool in between like that, and you can pry it out. Hang on, left-handed is really hard for me. And you just kind of, well, they're going to break sometimes. That one broke. This one has like 100,000 miles, so there we go. And you pop it out like that. Next, we're going to go ahead and take this plate off right here. There's an E10 here in the front. That one right there, this is a bolt that holds the pan, so go ahead and take this bolt out, and we're going to slide this bracket off that goes over the electrical. After we do that, you're going to have a 6mm Allen right here that you need to take this plug out and drain the transmission. And when you're doing these bolts, you can use an 8mm wobble, but so this bracket, it's just pinched underneath there. So this part right here slides under a piece right there below that harness, and then it bolts up here to the front. So for the back bolts, you're gonna need a universal. You can use an E8 on a swivel, or you can use an 8mm universal. I'm gonna use an 8mm Capri tools on an extension, and I'll be able to get back up there and get the bolts out. Let's get this drained first. One thing that you can do if you're not sure how much transmission fluid you're going to need to put in it, you can put a container underneath it and measure it. So sometimes we do that so we don't have to go mess around with the level. We just pour what we pulled out, and we know that it's probably pretty close. So 6mm. Also, you want to make sure that you don't lose your copper washer gasket, and if you have a new one, go ahead and replace it. Okay, so once you get your drain plug out, the 6mm, you can see that green little plastic piece up there. Take a screwdriver and pop that up, and that'll drain the rest of the fluid out. When you first take the drain plug out, about a quart of fluid is going to come out. Then when you knock the overflow pipe out, the rest of the fluid's going to drain. You really want to knock the overflow pipe out because this pan doesn't come straight down. It has to turn and twist, and you're going to make quite a mess. So the other downfall to not knocking off the overflow pipe is when you're doing the job, if the overflow pipe fails and there's a problem, then you can't fill the transmission properly because it relies heavily on that overflow pipe being sealed. So if you have a green overflow pipe, it takes blue fluid. If you have a white overflow pipe, it takes red fluid. So the way this pan is held up is by little pieces like this that go around the pan and hold the lip of the pan. 5 of them will be the same, and the passenger front will be larger because it has the hole for that bracket to bolt to. The passenger front, this is what the bracket looks like right here. On the left side is what goes around the pan, and the right side is where that bracket bolts to. You want to put the drain plug back in because the way this pan sits, it still holds some fluid. And when you're twisting and turning to get out of this, off the tranny and out, you're going to make quite a mess. So it's best to just put it back in. We have to take it out anyways to fill the tranny, but just put it back in for now. Now the easiest way to do this is to take out the 2 bolts for the rear tranny mount, jack up the rear of the transmission about the height of a 2x4, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and then you have a lot more room to get the pan out. The problem is when you're twisting it out between the 2 cross members, it hits the filter. So it's really difficult to get out, and in some cases you'll knock your filter off trying to get it out. Now you'll see I tried to push it back and drop it down in the front. You can't get it out that way. You have to drop it down and twist it sideways until it's in between the cross members and it drops. Now on this one I did not have to jack up the transmission, but on some of them I actually have had to put the pan back up and unbolt the transmission and lift up the back of the tranny because the pan did not want to come off without disturbing the filter. Here's what the overflow pipe looks like. It sits like that. The bottom has little grippers, and they grip onto the pan, and the fluid fills up to the top of this. I'll explain that in a minute. Let's get this filter down. So the rear of the filter, it just sits there like that, and it's all held in the front, and there's a seal up there. So all you're going to do is you're going to grab this on both ends and wiggle it side to side, side to side, and it's eventually going to pop out. But be careful because a lot more fluid's going to come out when you take your filter out. Your filter still holds in quite a bit of fluid. If you can keep it pushed up in the tranny, then your fluid will run out of the filter. Otherwise, it's just going to pour all over that cross member and make a mess. And now the filter's out. Once you get the pan down and the filter out, you're going to wipe around the edges. Just do like a preliminary wipe. We're going to obviously have to come back and wipe it again. I usually will just take a little bit of Scotch-Brite pad and run it around. It doesn't take much on these pans, the way that they seal the gasket, the transmission. I've never had one of these make a real big mess as far as cleaning up for the gasket surface. But it is good to take a piece of Scotch-Brite pad and some brake clean and just run it around the edge, because if you had the slightest bit of a lip of dirt or anything like that, then it wouldn't seal and you'd have a leak. So better safe than sorry. So while your pan is down, you want to inspect the inside of your pan for metal and also inspect your magnet. Your magnet sits at the rear of your transmission pan right there. That's what a normal one looks like. You just want to pull it off and clean it. Wipe out the pan. Make sure you put your magnet back. It's very important that magnet is there. But that's normal right there. So you want to make sure you get the magnet all cleaned up like that. A little red rag, some brake clean, should be good to go. And your transmission filter kit should look a little something like this. This is a ProTune, I believe. That's what we use for the sprinters. It's going to be a filter and a gasket. Now the gasket is like a U-shaped gasket because it goes around the sides, over the top, and then back around the inside like that to seal up the transmission pan. Here's what your filter looks like. There's an O-ring. I just used some Sil-Glide to lube it up. Wipe the pan down, wipe out the cross member. You're going to take your filter, you're going to get it lined up, and you're going to pop it into the transmission. It should pop in. You almost should hear like a click as the O-ring pops in, and then you know you're good. The back will still hang down just a little bit. So here's your bag. That's with the green overflow tube right there. That's the part number. You're going to take that, and all it's going to do is you're going to take it, and it has these little ears on it. And right there, that's where the drain plug is. You're going to put it on there, and you're going to push down with your fingers. You don't need much. It's going to click. There it is. So now the way this system works, this is actually really common for a lot of transmissions. With the vehicle off, you're going to take your drain plug out, and you're going to pump fluid until it comes out of the overflow tube and down the hole. So it's going to come out the dipstick as you pump fluid up the dipstick hole, up the drain plug hole. And once it fills up to the top of that overflow pipe, it's going to pour out, and you're going to put your drain plug back. And then while your vehicle is running, you're going to take your drain plug out again, and you're going to fill it until it comes to the top of that overflow pipe and pours out. And then that's how you'll know that the fluid is the correct level. And this is actually really common in a lot of manufacturers. So once you get your filter in, get your gasket on your pan, put it up, twist it around, put it up, and you're going to get your middle bolts started, both sides, and then get all the bolts started before you tighten anything down, pretty much just like anything. Now the way this pan goes up is those little brackets that bolt up to the transmission. There's like a slit in it, and that slit goes onto the transmission pan, and the pan sits into that slit. So I dropped the pan down just to show you how this works. So that is actually lifting up the lip, the outside lip of the transmission pan, and that's how it seals. And that's how it holds it. I mean, not seals. That's how it holds it up. Secures it is the proper word. Once you've got your pan in place, you're going to take all your little brackets or securing holders, whatever you want to call them. You're going to get them all in place and loosely fit all the bolts. Make sure you put the bigger one on the passenger front side for that bracket, and then you're going to tighten them down evenly. Now, I don't torque these. All it is a bracket securing the pan. You just want to snug it and then give it just a little more, and that's it. So these bolts, I just run them in with my little Milwaukee zipper gun, and then I come back by hand and I just give them a little hand crank, and then I know that they're snug and they're tight. And there we go. So now once we have the pan up, I'm going to go ahead and just take that 6mm Allen. I like to use my Capri Tools ratchet for breaking that drain plug loose. It's got the right amount of size for the ratchet for the torque. So once you take that drain plug out, now we need to pump fluid up in there. So here's the blue fluid, the blue transmission fluid that we use. We use the Pentasyn on the Sprinters. So we use either the blue or the red, depending on the overflow tube. Remember, this one's green, so it's getting blue. That's the overflow tube. So I don't have the tool that actually threads into any of the drain plugs, any of the drain pans like this. So I use this rubber cone. This is from my vacuum test kit that I use for testing drivability issues. So I take this and I put it on the end of the hose of my fluid evacuator and fluid pusher. And I just push it up tight and it seals the hole. So once you put the pan on, you're going to take your adapter, whether you have the right one or not. You're going to push it up there and you're going to pump fluid in there until it reaches the top of the overflow pipe. Now I use a Mightyvac. I'll show you what it looks like, but it pushes the fluid and then you can push a plunger and it reverses the fluid, sucking it out. So what I do to not lose any fluid is I pump the fluid, and then once I get to a point where I want to check, I'll reverse it so it'll be sucking the fluid. And once I go to the reversing portion, if there's no fluid in the tube, then I know it hasn't hit the overflow. I'll show you what that looks like. So right here you can see I'm pumping the fluid. I reverse the direction of the pump and I go to suck the fluid and the tube goes empty, meaning that it has not reached the overflow and there's no excess fluid to come out. And as you can see, it has not hit the overflow yet. You'll see here I'm pumping the fluid. I reverse the direction and you can still see some fluid coming through the tube, indicating that it had reached the overflow portion. And so now we have fluid pouring out. So now we're going to put the drain plug back in and we need to go start the vehicle and run it through all the gears. So here's what I use to fill up transmissions. I have two of these. I have an old one that I suck fluid out, and I have a new one that I only use to push fluid. Now this one has a reversible direction. You can push it down to suck the fluid, push it up to push the fluid, and then when I'm all done, I just open it up and drain it. And right here you'll see this is my old one, exactly the same model. I never changed the direction. This is strictly for pulling old fluid out, and then I dump it out of the top. That's it.
The reason you want the fluid to be 113 degrees and not much hotter is when fluid gets hot, it expands. And if it expands, then you'll have less fluid than you think you do, because it'll be pushing over that overflow tube. So now we're going to go ahead and start this thing and run it through the gears. So what I like to do is put it in reverse, give it about 2 seconds, go to neutral, give it about 2 seconds, drive, about 2 seconds, back to neutral, back to reverse, back to park. You only really need to do it once. I just have a way of, I do it twice in all cars that I do it in, and then drive, neutral, reverse, park. And now we're going to lift it up and pull that drain plug out.
And when you fill up a transmission with it not running when you start it, there won't be any fluid coming out of the overflow tube, because that is just a base fill. And then you have to fill it while it's running, because remember, your torque converter, your pump, everything is working. So I'm going to use a temperature probe to check the temperature, and the temperature is not quite right yet. So we're going to run it until it gets to the proper temperature. So while you're pumping in the fluid, when you remove your tool and some fluid starts to come out and you have like a slight little drizzle out of the overflow tube, this is when you want to put your drain plug back in, because now the transmission is full. Now that the fluid is full, you're going to go ahead and put the drain plug in. There we go. Tighten it down. And now we're actually going to clean it off, because now we're all done with the transmission. We're not going to be taking the plug back out. So now I'm going to take some brake clean, just spray it off, make sure everything's cleaned off all the way around the drain plug, and now it's time for a test drive. Get the cross member. Make sure you clean your cross member off real good, front and rear. And then the brake clean will dry right up from the heat.
After watching this video, serving this transmission should be a piece of cake. Whether you're a DIYer, owning your own Sprinter, or you're a mechanic just learning how to service these types of transmissions. Servicing it through the bottom is very common. It's actually, a lot of manufacturers are going to that. I have a 2012 Sienna, and I think in 2011 they had a dipstick. In 2012, they took it away. So most manufacturers are going to this type of transmission where you fill through the bottom. So thanks for watching the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.